Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James. Guys, this is your channel. So please obviously smash that sub. Help us to keep on growing. You know what? I've got a question. It's a real genuine question. And some people might think I'm stupid for asking this question. I don't know. Can a pre-season game ever be a must win? That's the question. Now, I would contend that probably not. But after the fact that obviously we have not yet really won a serious pre-season game yet, obviously we lost to Ajax, we lost to Manchester United, and last weekend's performance against Manchester United was widely regarded as one of the worst preseason performances in a long while. And listening to a number of other podcasts, I think everyone's kind of reading from the same narrative at the moment that this is worse than last preseason, and that takes a lot of doing considering how bad things were under Michael Beale. I think the squad look a long way short. I think the squad look bereft of quality and bereft of talent and bereft of speed, bereft of creativity. It's worrying. It is exceptionally worrying. Now, we all get the narrative. We all understand. I think the vast majority of fans understand that, we have to sell to buy because we've got a squad that is vastly overinflated and the wage bill is ridiculous and the average age of the squad is ridiculous. And I understand all that. I want to kind of clear something up a little bit. I've got some fans saying, our fans don't understand. They don't understand we can't just buy. Well, yeah, I think everyone gets that we can't just buy players and end up with a squad of 40, 45 players. That's just Chelsea stupidity, isn't it? And I get that there's FFP and PSR or whatever you want to call it these days. And obviously that comes into it. And I think the majority of fans understand that. And they understand, and I understand that we have to sell to buy. I've never, ever said we just need to come out and buy. That's not what I've said. I think fans who are saying, and there's been some people who've commented on videos that have said, you don't understand this. You don't understand it. You're saying that we just want to buy players. You just want them to buy players. That's not what I'm saying at all. I understand we have to clear dead wood because the squad is too big. A squad of over 30 is unwieldy. It's unmanageable. It's ridiculous. Okay. And the wage bill at this moment in time is too high. The wage bill, the contract situation is all down to the board's mismanagement of the club because of the fact they signed off on contracts with managers offering average footballers and below average footballers long contracts on big wages. Okay, Sam Lammers, 22 grand a week, Cyril Dessers, 27 grand a week, Connor Goldson, 37 grand a week, etc., etc. So I understand that there's a need to sell, right? But what we kind of miss out on a little bit, I think, here is, do we trust the board with the reinvestment of those funds and they're not going to funnel them off to their own pockets or to go into stadium development? Money that has been brought into the club in the past has not been spent in the right way. Edmiston House, vastly over budget. Stadium redevelopment, off schedule, probably over budget. Rental of Hampden, big cost. Compensation to fans probably needs to be paid as well, big cost. There's a lot of on costs from this debacle, and that is down to the board's mismanagement. I think if you think the board are doing a good job, you're kind of missing the point here that, you go right back across the whole Australia debacle. That was the board. Signing off on these big contracts for these average players. That was the board. That was not just Douglas Parker, Stuart Robertson. John Bennett was involved with that as well. The appointment of Michael Beale, the appointment, the sacking of Michael Beale, that was the board. And I think we all agree that they got it right sacking him, but the appointment was a joke. And the way it was done was out of order and it was unprofessional. And the board have a lot to answer for on that aspect. And I think, people who defend the board need to come out and answer those allegations of, mismanagement, of on costs, of overpayment, of transfer fees, of overpayment of contracts, of the whole stadium cock-up, and the fact the board couldn't run a bath, really, when it comes to things like this. But, we look ahead now to the game tomorrow night against Birmingham City at St Andrews. The first real... I can't find any, historical records of any competitive games between the two teams. Now, it is, of course, a match that honours both our former player, Trevor Francis. There he is with Graham Roberts in the League Cup triumph. Trevor Francis, of course, was a Birmingham City player. He was one of Birmingham's best ever players, striker. He was also the first player ever to be transferred for £1 million back when £1 million for a footballer was considered absolutely ridiculous. I mean, haven't we come a long way now that £1 million is what you pay for a very poor footballer? He was at Birmingham City between 70 and 79. He scored 118 goals in 280 appearances. Before obviously he moved on to Nottingham Forest, where he scored 28 goals in 70 appearances, including winning the European Cup and scoring the winner in a European Cup final. I mean, pretty fantastic. He also played for Man City, Sampdoria, Atalanta. And yes, he only spent a short time with Rangers during the 87-88 season, only making 18 appearances and scoring 1 goal. But he's still part of our history, part of our legacy, part of what makes this club what it is today. And Trevor Francis also, managed Birmingham City as well, and was quite a successful Birmingham City manager from what I recall. Now, tomorrow obviously will be the anniversary of his death. Trevor passed away in Spain on the 24th of July last year, age 69. So it'll be a year since Trevor died, and it's a good chance for the fans of both clubs who love Trevor to come together and honour him. And I think that's obviously that will be the big thing that has to be done tomorrow. And Birmingham have said that they hope to make this Trevor Francis Memorial Trophy a regular occurrence. I think not just between Rangers and obviously Birmingham, but probably between Birmingham and Forest, Birmingham Man City, Birmingham Sampdoria, Birmingham Atalanta, Birmingham and QPR. Some of the teams that he has formerly played for. So what do we know about Birmingham City, guys? Birmingham City are a team that are, well, unfortunate, really. Unfortunate. I happen to live in the Birmingham area. Well, I live 40 minutes from the city of Birmingham, actually. It's a short trip down the M6. Well, it's a short trip, but not a quick trip down the M6 to one of the roughest cities in the country. Someone who's been into Birmingham a number of times. If you're going to the game tomorrow night, don't expect pretty. Birmingham is not a pretty place. It is quite dirty in areas, quite rough. The area where the stadium is, Small Heath, is a very rough area of Birmingham. Very, very dirty, very unkempt. Birmingham's a bit of a dump, really, if I'm being honest with you. Having driven all over Birmingham, one of my former jobs, delivering to all areas of Birmingham like Sparkhill, Sparkbrook, Yardley, Small Heath, Lascelles, Handsworth, Nechells. It's not the nicest of places, shall we say. Centre of Birmingham's quite nice in terms of pubs and clubs and restaurants. So if you're going into the city centre after the game or before the game, there are some nice pubs and restaurants, but be prepared to pay a lot of money for food and drink. So look, we know that Birmingham obviously were a team last year in the Championship, in the English Championship. Now, they suffered an absolute alarming fall from grace and a kind of very disappointing end to their season, really. You look at Birmingham City going into that game, into that season last season, and you kind of think, well, they were actually a team that probably were playoff contenders at the start of the season, or at least top half of the table of contenders. And their manager, John Eustace, who was linked with the Rangers job after Michael Beale was sacked, was a very good, young, promising manager, and he had them in 6th place. Now, an American owner took over the club, Tom Wagner, assisted by former NFL quarterback Tom the Cheap Brady. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I do hate Brady because he's an ex-New England Patriot. There was big aspirations for the club, and the American owners had massive aspirations for the club. And the first thing they did was to sack John Eustace and replace him with former Manchester United player Wayne Rooney after he was sacked by DC United. Rooney took over the club and presided over one of the worst runs in the club's history as they fell away, massively fell away. I mean, this club was 6th when Wayne Rooney took over, and they just fell like a stone, like an absolute stone. I can't remember. It took him months to win his first game. And when he left the club, he left them in an absolute whole pile of trouble with what he'd done at the club. One of the worst managers in Birmingham's history. I mean, he was only manager for 15 games, which he only won 2 of them, losing 9 at a 13% win percentage before he was sacked. They then obviously appointed a series of managers. They had Tony Mowbray, who then obviously did well for a short time, but then was ill and had to have an operation and left the club. Gary Rowett took over. And they ended up being relegated on the last day of the season after losing 1-0 to Norwich City. So it was an unfortunate fall away from Birmingham, a real fall from grace. They ended up finishing in 22nd place in the Championship, which is 3rd off bottom in the Championship, and being relegated to League One. So for the first time, I think it's 30 years, Birmingham City will be playing in League One next season, which is like the old English 3rd division. So, Rangers go into this game against an English third division team. So it's a game we really do need to be winning, a game we do need to be putting them to the sword in. And I think obviously a lot depends on the team that Philippe Clement picks. Who does he pick? Who does he use? Now, we spoke, didn't he, about the fact that a lot of the players on Saturday were going to get 75, 80 minutes against Manchester United. And then a lot of the players who were on the bench against Manchester United would get a start against Birmingham. That's what he said. I mean, that may change. We don't know. If that's the case, you would kind of guess that the likes of Leon Balogun, that Alex Lowry, that Ross McCausland, that Danilo, Liam Kelly, players like that and Ridvan may very well get the start against Birmingham with some of the players who started on Saturday featuring from the bench. Certainly that could be the case. Now we'll look at the Rangers team options shortly. Now Birmingham City are managed by a former Celtic assistant called Chris Davis. Chris Davis was part of Ange Postecoglou's coaching team and Brendan Rodgers' coaching team as well. Went at Liverpool. He went to Tottenham with Ange Postecoglou. He left Tottenham to become Birmingham City's manager. So he has history of the old firm. He understands the old firm. He knows Rangers, having obviously been part of Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers' coaching staffs. So he is a manager with Celtic history. I'm sure our fans will let him know that on Wednesday night, their displeasure at the fact he was associated with the green and white side of the city. In terms of Birmingham City and their team, they're a team that's undergone massive change. They've shipped out a whole host of players. They've spent just over £13 million on players this summer, more than us, which is really quite telling that a League One team. But it is down to the fact their American owners do have a substantial amount of money. They are a very, very rich. Tom Wagner is exceptionally rich. Look, this. I think they brought, was it 10 players they brought in, and they've let a number go. They've actually not actually. I don't think they've actually brought in a great deal of fees for the players they've actually brought in on loan and purchase. And they have actually signed players, and it's not just players that they have got in on loan. They've acquired the following players. Christoph Klara from Darmstadt, who is a centre-back. Willemsen, great, from Go Ahead Eagles, who is in a attacking midfielder. A left winger from Heracles called Emil Hansen. A left back from Hearts called Alex Cochrane, some of us will remember him from last season. Ryan Allsop, a very experienced goalkeeper from Hull. Alfie May, who was the Golden Boot winner in the Championship last season, who scored 31 goals last season with Charlton, is also now a Birmingham City player and a goal scorer at the weekend. Bailey Peacock Farrell, a goalkeeper from Burnley, who in the Premiership last season. Peacock Farrell probably best known for his time at Leeds under Marcelo Bielsa. They've also acquired, brought it back from loan Bradley Mayo as well. Players they've got rid of a lot of their players as well, including some experience. So they're a decent side. They're a decent side. But look, this is a team that we've got to be beating because they're a League One team after all. Now, there are some names you may recognise in the Birmingham lineup tomorrow. For example, Juninho Bacuna, former Rangers player, is still at Birmingham City. So we may recognise him, certainly from his limited time at Rangers. Their squad, they've even got a Scottish player from Senegal, apparently, Siriki Dembele, because he came up through the youth system at Dundee United, but apparently he's Scottish, but even though he was born in Senegal. Not quite sure how that one works. I think it's to do with the fact that he lived in Scotland for a long time. Tyler Roberts, Christian Bielik, Dion Sanderson, who was linked with a move to Rangers, is Dion Sanderson is another player that you may well know as well, a guy who was linked with a move to Rangers. Ethan Laird is their right back. He's from Bournemouth, Premier League Bournemouth. So it's not a squad of complete duffers. It's not a team that are going to come in and who have no experience of playing, football. This is a team that the ownership have built to kind of, win League One and get straight back up. I mean, they're predicting a lineup of Peacock Farrell, Laird, Bielik, Clara, Cochrane, Paik, James Stansfield, who is a very good attacking player, scored 12 goals in the Championship last season. Willemsen, Hansen, and of course May, who scored 31 goals for Charlton. So they're not a team without threat. They're not a team that are going to roll over and die against us. So in terms of, Chris Davis, he's a manager that likes to play football. He likes to get the ball down, pass it around, dominate possession. They are a possession-based team, which will be difficult in League One, where it's very much a cloggers league, a league where you get the crap kicked out of you. Very much if I could sort of give you an analogy of League One in England, League One is a league where you have some teams that are in League One that are footballing teams, that are teams that like to play football, that like to score goals, that like to play nicely. But then there are teams within that league who like to kick the shit out of you, basically. Very much like Scotland from that aspect. You've got Celtic and Rangers who play football, Hearts to some extent as well, play football. But you've then got other teams in that league who basically come with the sole intention of kicking the crap out of you. Now, pre-season wise, Birmingham have already played Paderborn on their German tour, where they lost 5-0 to the Germans. They beat Solihull Moors, who are a conference team, 3-0, and they beat Shrewsbury, I think they're League 2, 2-0 at the weekend. They've got Birmingham, obviously us on Wednesday, and then they finish off their pre-season programme with 2 games against Walsall and West Brom before their first league game, which is on the 10th of August against Reading. So they've got a full, programme coming up. And I think that, again, they are very far along in their preparation. So Rangers go into this tie with, I think, it's a difficult one. We're kind of in a kind of, I don't know, a state of limbo, really, where we are, we've got a team, but it's probably not going to be our team long term. It's probably not going to, hopefully it's not going to be our team long term. Hopefully there are more signings going to arrive, obviously with the deadline of the 1st of August for the Euro squad. And then apparently you can only make, I think it's 2 changes between the third qualifying round and the playoff round. And if we bring in players, obviously that could be a problem. And obviously we had to leave Oscar Cortez out of the Europa League squad last season, didn't we? So, it's a difficult situation. Sorry, my phone is going off like mad. It is. It's a really tricky situation. So, look, what team he plays tomorrow will very much depend, I think, on does he follow through on what he said in terms of, players who are on the bench on Saturday will be the players that start on the weekend, or does he therefore go back on that and look at perhaps, pulling together a stronger lineup, a team that, that could compete, a team that is, perhaps more closer to what we're likely to see, come the 3rd of August, given the unlikely, I think at the moment, there's any quick movement on signings, unless we can, in effect, as I said on the video this morning, get those 4 players out of the door ASAP. It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a really tricky one for the manager. He's really going through a time where he has his hands tied. He really does. He can only go with what he's got. He can only play what he's got. And at this moment in time, the team that we have is quite simply not good enough. So, if you look at the bench on Saturday, you had Kelly, you had Danilo, Lowry, McKinnon, McCausland, King, Balogun, Dowell, Matondo, Goldson and Yilmaz. Now, it's unlikely that Connor Goldson will feature if he's out in Cyprus having a medical. Yilmaz, I think, is a strong possibility to play. Balogun and King, I suppose, could be a starting centre-half partnership. Adam Devine could come in at right back, I suppose. Cole McKinnon could go into midfield with Kieran Dowell. You could have Matondo, Lowry, and McCausland as the 3, and maybe Danilo up front. That might be the 11, which would be not a great team. I think that team would probably struggle to get a result. I think, this is Birmingham are not going to be a walkover. They're not going to be an easy game, even though they are an English League One team. They're still have got some very good players, and I think it's more the team they've kind of assembled is closer to being a championship team. And I think we all kind of recognise at this moment in time that this squad is really genuinely not good enough. The Rangers squad, it really is not to the standards we need it to be if we are going to be truly competitive come the start of next season, and obviously going through next season. It is a real concern for me. So the first team could certainly look something along the lines of this. If manager is going to not play any of the starters from Saturday. I think that'll be a mistake personally. I think the more minutes you can get into what is your strongest starting 11, or the more minutes you can get into players who need them, the better. I do hope Danilo gets a start or someone else, because I can't sit through 90 minutes of Dessers. I just can't. The guy couldn't trap a bag of cement. He was absolutely awful on Saturday. I think Stevie of Four Lads made a great point on Rangers Review the other day when he said, it really does show how bad we are up front when we're talking about all we want is a striker who can trap the ball. Poor, isn't it? Really poor. Yeah, Dessers is just shite. He is absolute shite and he needs to go. But yeah, I mean, that could be it. I mean, personally, I wouldn't go with that. I mean, personally, I would go with a stronger team than that. This is what I would go with. Butland in goal. Back four, Sterling, Suter, Balogun and Yilmaz. I think, at this moment in time, we do need centre-halves. We desperately need centre-halves at the club. I think the full-back positions are fine with Sterling and Yilmaz. We probably need a backup right back, in my opinion. To go with Devine, that would give us Sterling a backup and Devine. Left back, it gives you Yilmaz, Hefte and Fraser. We need a centre half, or we need at least one centre half, especially obviously if Goldson leaves. I can't see King, Suter, Balogun, and Davis being good enough next season to win us anything. Diamande and Barron, I think, are absolutely fantastic. They are the two massive positives out of this pre-season. I think Barron has been fantastic. His energy is good. His use of the ball is good. His positivity is good. He's an all-round top player, and Diamande is looking every bit the class act I think that we all hoped he would become. So for me, Dio, top player. McCausland, I would start on the right just because I don't want to see Scott Wright. I just genuinely cannot see any more of that absolutely dreadful footballer. I mean, how that guy gets a game for our club, I do not know. He is absolute awful. Cortez on the left, he needs more minutes if we're going to get him fit for the start of the season. I think that is an absolute must. Look, whatever the manager thinks of Todd Cantwell, whatever the fans think of Todd Cantwell, he has to come back into the first team squad. Tom Lawrence is not good enough. He looks slow. He can't press high like Cantwell has. He hasn't got the energy of Cantwell. Yes, he's got a decent shot on him, but against Manchester United, Lawrence was absolutely appalling. And guys, yes, I know it was Manchester United, but there's probably only going to be 3-4 out of that lineup going to start in their first team. It was largely their second and third teams we played, and Lawrence looked average, bang average. And I like Tom Lawrence. I really do. But Todd Cantwell, for me, has to come back in. He's got energy. He's got the ability to unlock a defence. He's got the ability to score a goal, the ability to assist. He's a good player. And whatever the manager's problem is with him, he needs to just bury it, put it to one side until we get a replacement at very least. Because if you're going into the season with Tom Lawrence and even, to some extent, Alex Lowry as your big hope at 10, and it does look like Clement wants to play with a 10 as much as some of us have talked about him playing a flat 3. Cantwell, for me, is the best 10 we've got at the club. He just is. And he's not perfect. Yes, he's inconsistent. But out of Hadji, Lowry, Lawrence, Cantwell's the best we've got. And you've got to go with your strongest team. And I really do think it's a mistake until we do actually sell him, not using him. Danilo, I would give a start to, give him some more minutes. He just looked, in the 10-15 minutes he played on Saturday, he just looks head and shoulders above Cyril Dessers. And to say he's not even match fit just shows you how bad Dessers is, how genuinely bad that man is. And I hear some unbelievable takes from some Rangers fans and some Rangers podders about him, calling him the GOAT and calling him, saying this and that and other. He's absolutely bang average. He's bang average. He's a third string striker. If we go into the season with him as our starting 9, we win jack or because he will miss crucial chances as he did last season. So that's how I would go into this game, guys. We've got to go in with the strongest lineup, I think, these last 2 games. Start pulling it together. At the moment in time, we haven't got any new arrivals. And it may be that, by Saturday against Union Berlin, we may have some signings. By 3rd of August, we may have brought in some players, and that will be great. But at this moment in time, I think we need to put together a strong lineup that can go in there, get minutes in their legs, and be ready for the 3rd of August against Hearts at Tynecastle in what is going to be an exceptionally tough game. Well, guys, thank you for watching. This is the preview, guys. We're obviously looking ahead to the game tomorrow. If you're at the game tomorrow, let me know. It would look great to see you. Guys, as always, we are close to 6K, so please obviously help us by smashing that sub. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, could you do me 2 favors? Number 1, smash the like. It helps the video to grow and beats the algorithm. And number 2, remember always, never forget. Even more important at this moment in time, guys, if all we're going through as a club, we are the people.